I'm Nick Salestrom with Southeast Community College, and I'm here to talk to you about social awareness as part of our emotional intelligence presentation. This is based on our quality initiative work with the book Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Bradbury and Greaves. And I want to start with a few quotes from this key text. Firstly, social awareness is your ability to accurately pick up on emotions in other people and understand what's really going on with them. Next, listening and observing are the most important elements of social awareness. Then, we have to stop talking. Stop the monologue that may be running through our minds. Stop anticipating the point the other person is about to make, and stop thinking ahead to what we're going to say next. So, with those key quotes in mind, let's go to this question. How can social awareness be particularly challenging for educators? At this point, go ahead and pause the presentation to discuss with your groups. All right, now that you've discussed it with your groups, I wanted to add some of my own thoughts to the conversation. Things that struck me when considering this question was that firstly, well, teachers are supposed to have the answers, right? That's the way I always felt, especially when I started. I wanted to have the answers as soon as I possibly could because it helped me to feel confident. We're supposed to be the guides, right? And so if I can look at somebody's situation and think, oh, I've seen another student in a similar spot before, why wouldn't I want to apply all of that advice to this current situation? And to be perfectly frank, that comfort and confidence is drawn from my experience. That's one of the things I take pride in as an educator. But as we can see, my answers there, they conflict a little bit with our three quotes. We've got to understand what's really going on with the person in front of us, not understand a situation from somebody else maybe a year or two ago. Quotes tell us that listening and observing are the most important elements of social awareness. Well, spouting an answer probably isn't the best example of listening and observing, is it? And finally, more directly still, it says that we have to stop talking and stop our internal monologue about what we think is going on. So, these quotes show that I've got a bit of a challenge here, and it may well be similar for some of you. So, considering these quotes, we're going to turn to the first of the two scenarios that we are going to discuss to kind of put this social awareness question into action. So let's turn to the late paper from Downing On Course, 7th edition from Cengage. Now, you might have copies of this, and if you want to go ahead and read this silently in your groups, that's completely fine, but I'm going to read it aloud while the presentation is on this slide. If you want to be reading silently by yourselves, just skip ahead to the next slide in the video. But with that, here is the late paper. Professor Freud announced in her syllabus for Psychology 101 that final term papers had to be in her hands by noon on December 18. No student, she emphasized, would pass the course without a completed term paper turned in on time. As the semester drew to a close, Kim had an A average in Professor Freud's psychology class, and she began researching her term paper with excitement. Arnold, Kim's husband, felt threatened that he had only a high school diploma while his wife was getting close to her college degree. Arnold worked the evening shift at a bakery, and his coworker Philip began teasing him that soon Kim would dump him for a college guy. That's when Arnold started accusing Kim of having an affair and demanding she drop out of college. She told Arnold that he was being ridiculous. In fact, she said, a young man in her history class had asked her out, but she had refused. Instead of feeling better, Arnold became even more angry. With Philip continuing to provoke him, Arnold became sure that Kim was having an affair, and he began telling her every day that she was stupid and she would never get a degree. Despite the tension at home, Kim finished her psychology term paper the day before it was due. Since Arnold had hidden the car keys and Professor Freud refused to accept assignments sent by email, Kim decided to take the bus to the college and turn in her psychology paper a day early. While she was waiting for the bus, Cindy, one of Kim's psychology classmates, drove up and invited Kim to join her and some other students for an end-of-semester celebration. Kim told Cindy that she was on her way to turn in her term paper, and Cindy promised she'd make sure that Kim got it in on time. I deserve some fun, Kim decided, and hopped in the car. The celebration went long into the night. Kim kept asking Cindy to take her home, but Cindy always replied, "Don't be such a bore, have another drink." When Cindy finally took Kim home, it was 4:30 in the morning. She sighed with relief when she found that Arnold had already fallen asleep. When Kim woke up, it was 11:30 a.m., just 30 minutes before her term paper was due. She could make it to the college on time by car, so she shook Arnold and begged him to drive her. He just snapped, "Oh, sure, you stay out all night with your college friends. Then I'm supposed to get up on my day off and drive you all over town? Forget it." "At least give me the keys," she said, but Arnold merely rolled over and went back to sleep. Panicked, Kim called Professor Freud's office and told Mary, the administrative assistant, that she was having car trouble. "Don't worry," Mary assured Kim. "I'm sure Professor Freud wouldn't care if your paper's a little late. Just be sure to have it here before she leaves at 1 o'clock. Relieved, Kim decided not to wake Arnold again. Instead, she took the bus. At 12:15, Kim walked into Professor Freud's office with her term paper. Professor Freud said, "Sorry, Kim, you're 15 minutes late." She refused to accept Kim's term paper and gave Kim an F for the course. All right, now look towards the bottom of the sheet. Listed below are the characters in the story. Rank them in order of their responsibility for Kim's failing grade in Psychology 101. Give a different score to each character, and be prepared to explain your choices. Rank them from 1 being the most responsible for Kim's grade to 6 being the least responsible for Kim's grade. Professor Freud, the instructor, Kim, the psychology student, Arnold, Kim's husband, Philip, Arnold's co-worker, Cindy, Kim's classmate, and Mary, the administrative assistant. Once you've done that, then go into diving deeper. Is there someone not mentioned in the story who may also bear responsibility for Kim's failing grade? Okay, so now that we've finished with what's actually on the sheet, let's do some follow-up. Who, based on your rankings, was the most responsible for Kim's grade? And what's the rationale for your conclusion? So go ahead and pause the video here to lay out your answers and discuss them with your groups. Once you've finished with those first 2 prompts, let's take one more look at this with the question on the bottom of the slide. How might we have to reconsider things from a perspective of social awareness? Go ahead and pause again here and discuss that based on what you know about social awareness and the quotes we looked at earlier. All right. Now there's one other piece that I want us to consider with relation to this scenario. Conflicting priorities. Regarding school, what do you think are the top 3 priorities for Professor Freud and for Kim? Go ahead and pause the video now and fill out a list of your top 3 priorities for each of these characters. Finished? Okay. Now, considering what we know about social awareness, what do we make of the differences in the priorities between these two? And what can we gain by being aware of these differences? Let's go ahead and pause now for discussion. All right. Now, after that consideration of different priorities, we're going to put our thinking into action with the second of our 2 scenarios. So this one is Aftermath, again from Downing's On-Course 7E from Cengage. And just like before, I'm going to read this scenario aloud. And if you have copies to read on your own, go ahead and skip forward to the next slide. And with that, here is Aftermath. When Professor Bishop returned midterm exams, he said, "In 20 years of teaching math, I've never seen such low scores. Can anyone tell me what the problem is?" He ran a hand through his graying hair and waited. No one spoke. "Don't you people even care how you do?" Students fiddled with their test papers. They looked out of the window. No one spoke. Finally, Professor Bishop said, "Okay, Scott, we'll start with you. What's going on? You got a 35 on the test. Did you even study?" Scott, 18, mumbled, "Yeah, I studied, but I just don't understand math." Other students in the class nodded their heads. One student muttered, "Amen, brother." Professor Bishop looked around the classroom. How about you, Elena? You didn't even show up for the test. Elena, 31, sighed. I'm sorry, but I have a lot of other things beside this class to worry about. My job keeps changing my schedule. I broke a tooth last week. My roommate won't pay me the money she owes me. My car broke down, and I haven't been able to find my math book for 3 weeks. I think my boyfriend hid it. If one more thing goes wrong in my life, I'm going to scream. Professor Bishop shook his head slowly back and forth. Well, that's quite a story. What about the rest of you? Silence reigned for a full minute. Suddenly, Michael, 23, stood up and snarled. You're a joke, man. You can't teach, and you want to blame the problem on us. Well, I've had it. I'm dropping this stupid course. Then I'm filing a grievance. You better start looking for a new job. He stormed out of the classroom, slamming the door behind him. Okay, I can see this isn't going anywhere productive, Professor Bishop said. I want you all to go home and think about why you're doing so poorly, and don't come back until you're prepared to answer that question honestly. He picked up his books and left the room. Elena checked her watch and then dashed out of the room. She still had time to catch her favorite reality show in the student lounge. An hour later, Michael was sitting alone in the cafeteria when his classmates Scott and Kia, 20, joined him. Scott said, Geez, Michael, you really went off on Bishop. You're not really going to drop his class, are you? Already did, Michael snapped as his classmates sat down. I went right from class to the registrar's office. I am out of there. I might as well drop the class myself, Kia thought. Ever since she was denied entrance to the nursing program, she'd been too sad to do her homework. Familiar tears blurred her vision. Scott said, I don't know what it is about math. I study for hours, but then I get to the test, I get so freaked, it's like I never studied at all. My mind just goes blank. Thinking about math, Scott started craving something to eat. Where do you file a grievance against a professor around here anyway? Michael asked. I have no idea, Scott said. What? Kia answered. She hadn't heard a word that Michael or Scott had said. All she could think about was how her whole life was ruined because she would never be a nurse. Michael stood and stomped off to file a grievance. Scott went to buy some French fries. Kia put her head down on the cafeteria table and tried to swallow the burning sensation in her throat. All right, now we move to the lower section of the sheet. Listed below are the characters in the story. Rank them in order of their emotional intelligence. Give a different score to each character and be prepared to explain your choices. In this case, a person with a 1 is the least emotionally intelligent, and a person with a 5 is the most emotionally intelligent. The people to be rated are Professor Bishop, Michael, Scott, Kia, and Elena. And then the delving deeper section. Imagine that you have been asked to mentor the person whom you scored a 1, least emotionally intelligent. Other than recommending a counselor, how would you suggest that this person handle his or her upset in a more emotionally intelligent manner? Okay. Once you've finished reading through Aftermath, go ahead and score the EQs per the bottom of the worksheet. Then, at your tables, determine which character regularly scored with a low EQ or emotional intelligence rating. Then, after having done that, as a table, tackle the diving deeper prompt. What specific advice would you give to this person as a group? Go ahead and pause now and complete this activity. Okay, once you're finished with that, we have come to the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today on the subject of social awareness and emotional intelligence.